The question changed everything. The laughter vanished instantly. Victoria looked surprised, then thoughtful, then something else. Honest. For several seconds she said nothing. Then she looked toward the lake. "Do you want the funny answer?" Emma shook her head. "No." Silence followed. Then Victoria took a slow breath. "Okay." Another pause. "The truth?" Emma nodded. Victoria stared at the water for several moments. Finally she spoke. "Because I was lonely." My pulse stopped, completely stopped. Emma listened quietly. Then Victoria continued. "I had everything people are supposed to want." Another pause. "Money." Another pause. "Success." Another pause. "A company." She laughed softly. A sad sound. "And I was still lonely." The wind moved through the trees. Then Victoria smiled slightly. "Then I saw your post." Another pause. "And it made me laugh." Another pause. "Then it made me cry." Emma's eyes widened slightly. Then Victoria looked directly at her. "Because you weren't asking for a perfect mom." Another pause. "You were asking for someone who cared." The park became very quiet. Then Emma whispered, "And?" Victoria smiled, a real smile, and I thought. Another pause. Maybe I needed that too. My chest tightened painfully, because suddenly everything made sense. Then Emma lowered her clipboard. She wasn't interviewing anymore. She was just listening. Then Victoria reached over and gently squeezed her hand. "You know something?" Emma shook her head. Victoria smiled. "You changed my life." Silence swallowed the park. Then Emma looked down, like she was trying very hard not to cry. The problem with children is that when they try not to cry, everyone else wants to cry too. Then Emma suddenly stood up. "I need a minute." Before either of us could react, she walked toward the lake. Not far, just far enough to be alone for a moment. Victoria watched her go, then slowly looked at me. Her eyes seemed brighter than usual. "She's upset." "No." I smiled softly. "She's emotional." Another pause. "There's a difference." Victoria laughed quietly. Then neither of us spoke for several seconds. Finally she whispered, "I don't want this weekend to end." My pulse accelerated immediately, because she'd said exactly what I was thinking. Then I looked toward the lake where Emma stood skipping stones. "Neither do I." Silence followed. Long, comfortable, dangerous. Then Victoria looked at me. Really looked at me. And for the first time since we'd met, there was no interview. No mom search. No viral story. No excuse. Just us. Then she smiled softly. "Good." My heart immediately forgot how to function. Then Emma came running back toward us. Fast. Very fast. Which meant trouble. "Emergency," she shouted. Both of us stood up immediately. "What happened?" Emma stopped in front of us, breathing hard, excited, determined. Then she held up the clipboard. I made my decision. Silence. Complete silence. Victoria looked nervous. I looked terrified. Then Emma grinned. "Victoria Hale." Another dramatic pause. "You passed." Victoria burst into laughter. Real laughter. Relieved laughter. The kind that made tears appear in her eyes. Then Emma hugged her tightly. For several seconds neither of them moved. Then Emma whispered something so quietly that only Victoria heard it. I watched Victoria's entire expression change. Her smile disappeared. Tears appeared instantly. Real tears. Then she hugged Emma even tighter. My pulse immediately accelerated, because whatever Emma had just said, it wasn't part of the interview. And somehow, I knew it was going to change everything. Then she reached for a tablet sitting on the counter. "Before you get mad." Those words never help. Ever. Then she turned the screen toward me. My blood turned to ice, because the post wasn't just online. It had gone viral. 53,000 shares, 8,000 comments, hundreds of thousands of views, news pages, parenting groups, family forums, social media accounts. My daughter's homemade mom search was spreading across the internet like wildfire. I stared at the numbers, and somehow, I knew it was going to change everything. The moment Emma finally released the hug, Victoria quickly wiped at her eyes. Too late. Both of us had already seen the tears. Emma looked entirely too pleased with herself, which immediately made me nervous. "What did you say?" I asked. Emma smiled innocently. Nothing. Whenever a child says nothing with that smile, adults should prepare for emotional damage. Then Victoria laughed softly. It's okay. My pulse tightened. What did she say? Victoria looked toward Emma, then back at me. Her smile trembled slightly. She said, another pause. Thank you for trying. Silence settled over the park. Then Emma looked down at the grass. Suddenly shy, suddenly vulnerable. Most people just thought it was funny. Her voice sounded much smaller now. You didn't. The words hit harder than anyone expected. Then Victoria knelt beside her. Emma. The child looked up. Victoria gently brushed a strand of hair away from her face. You never needed to thank me. Another pause. Meeting you was one of the best things that ever happened to me. That was it. My heart officially surrendered. The rest of the afternoon passed in a blur. We walked around the lake, fed ducks, bought ice cream, took pictures, laughed too much. Yet beneath every moment was the same realization. The weekend was ending. Around 6 o'clock, Victoria's driver arrived. The black SUV waited near the edge of the park. Reality had finally caught up with us. Emma noticed first. Her smile faded immediately. Then she looked at Victoria. Do you have to go? The question hung in the air. Victoria glanced toward the vehicle, then back at Emma. Yeah. Silence followed. Then Emma nodded slowly, trying very hard to be brave. The problem was that children who try to be brave are devastating. Then Victoria opened her arms. Emma immediately stepped into them. The hug lasted a long time, longer than either of them expected. Then Victoria whispered something into her ear. Emma smiled through suspiciously shiny eyes. Finally, they pulled apart. Then Victoria turned toward me. Suddenly, the entire world seemed too quiet. Well, she laughed softly. We're terrible at goodbyes. Apparently. Another pause. Then neither of us moved, which only made things worse. Finally, Victoria smiled. Small, warm, dangerous. Thank you. My pulse tightened. For what? For letting me be part of this. Another pause. Even for a little while. The sadness in her voice surprised me. Then she looked away briefly. Toward the lake. Toward Emma. Toward the town. I didn't realize how much I needed it. My chest tightened painfully, because I knew exactly what she meant. Then the driver cleared his throat politely from 20 feet away. Apparently even billionaires couldn't escape schedules forever. Victoria laughed softly. That's my cue. Yet she still didn't move. Neither did I. Then Emma solved the problem. Naturally. You should visit next weekend. Both of us blinked, then looked at her. Emma shrugged. Seems obvious. Victoria laughed immediately. Does it? Yes. Another pause. You're in the finals now. My soul briefly left my body. Again. Then Victoria pointed toward the child. She's impossible. I've been telling people that for years. For a moment, nobody spoke. Then Victoria finally stepped backward. Slowly. Reluctantly. She looked at Emma. Then at me. Then back at Emma. I'll call tomorrow. Emma nodded immediately. Good. Then she crossed her arms. Because I'm making waffles. Victoria laughed. That's a threat, isn't it? Yes. The CEO smiled one last time before walking toward the SUV. I expected relief once she left. Space. Normalcy. Instead, the moment the vehicle disappeared down the road, something felt wrong. Like a piece of the weekend had been removed. Like the house had become quieter without warning. Emma noticed too. That evening she sat at the kitchen table staring at her untouched dinner. Finally, she sighed. I miss her already. My pulse tightened. She left 2 hours ago. Still. Another sigh. It's rude. I couldn't argue with that logic. Then my phone buzzed. One new message. Victoria. I opened it immediately. Big mistake. Emma noticed. Is it her? Maybe. Read it. The child had no respect for privacy. Then I looked down at the screen. The message was simple. Thank you for the best weekend I've had in years. My chest tightened instantly. Then another message appeared. Tell Emma I survived the drive home. A third followed seconds later. Also, I think she cheated during the evaluation process. I laughed before I could stop myself. Emma grinned. See? Then she pointed triumphantly. She belongs here. Later that night, after Emma finally went to bed, I sat alone on the porch. Then at Emma. Then back at the numbers. How? She shrugged. People are nice. No, they weren't. Not usually. Yet somehow the comments scrolling beneath the post looked different. People were laughing, crying, sharing stories, offering encouragement. Parents, widows, single fathers, single mothers, entire families. The internet had collectively decided to adopt my daughter for the afternoon. Then a notification appeared. New application received. My stomach immediately dropped. The town was quiet. Crickets filled the darkness. My phone rested beside me. Then another message arrived. This one longer. My pulse immediately accelerated. I opened it. Ethan, can I tell you something honestly? The words made my stomach tighten. Then I kept reading. When I first applied, I thought I was helping a little girl. Now I'm not sure that's true anymore. Silence swallowed the porch. Then the final line appeared beneath it. I think your daughter might have been helping me. I stared at the message for a very long time, because deep down, I knew she was right. Then I started typing a response, deleted it, started again, deleted it again. Finally, I settled on the truth. She has a habit of doing that. 3 dots appeared immediately. Victoria was still awake. Then her reply arrived. Yeah, I noticed. I smiled despite myself. Then another message appeared. Good night, Ethan. The strange thing was how much warmth could fit inside 2 words. Good night, Victoria. I set the phone down and looked out across Willow Creek. For the first time in years, the future didn't feel empty. Uncertain? Absolutely. Complicated? Definitely. But not empty. Then my phone buzzed one final time. I almost ignored it. Almost. The message wasn't from Victoria. It was from a national television network. Subject line: Live interview request. My stomach immediately dropped, because somehow Emma's mom search had become even bigger. And judging by the second email that arrived seconds later, someone was about to make the entire country pay attention. The sender's name made my blood run cold. Victoria Hale. And attached to the email was something titled, Public Statement. And attached to the email was something titled, Public Statement. My stomach immediately dropped, completely dropped. For several seconds I simply stared at the screen. Then I opened the attachment. Big mistake. Very big mistake. The statement was short, professional, carefully written. Yet every word carried the unmistakable voice of Victoria Hale. To everyone following Emma Brooks' mom's search story, thank you for your kindness. Thank you for your humor. Most importantly, thank you for reminding people that family matters. Sometimes the most important things in life cannot be measured by success, money, or titles. Sometimes they begin with a little girl brave enough to ask for what she needs. I stopped reading. My pulse hammered, because this wasn't a corporate statement. This wasn't public relations. This was personal. Then my phone rang. Victoria. I answered immediately. What are you doing? Silence. Then a laugh. Soft. Nervous. Good evening to you too. Victoria. Yes? What are you doing? Another pause. Then she sighed. Something irresponsible. My pulse tightened. That's not reassuring. Victoria laughed quietly. Then her voice softened. The network contacted me. I figured. Silence followed. Then she continued. They want an interview. Of course they did. The entire country had become obsessed with Emma's mom's search. It was only a matter of time before someone tried turning it into television. Then Victoria added the part I wasn't expecting. I said yes. My heart stopped. Completely stopped. Why? Silence. Longer this time. Then she answered honestly, because I'm tired of pretending none of this matters. The words landed heavily. Then she continued. For 20 years, every interview I've ever done was about business. Another pause. Stock prices. Another pause. Quarterly earnings. Another pause. Acquisitions. Her voice softened. I want to talk about something real. My chest tightened unexpectedly, because somehow I understood exactly what she meant. The interview aired 3 days later. Emma insisted on watching, which is how the three of us ended up sitting in front of my television while half the country listened to Victoria Hale discuss a little girl from Willow Creek. The interviewer smiled professionally. Victoria, millions of people have followed this story. Victoria nodded. Apparently. The audience laughed. Then the interviewer leaned forward. Why did you respond? Silence followed. Not awkward silence. Thoughtful silence. Then Victoria smiled. Because Emma asked a question most adults are afraid to ask, my pulse immediately accelerated. Then Victoria continued. She asked for connection. Another pause. Most of us spend our lives pretending we don't need that. The studio became very quiet. Then the interviewer asked, do you think she found what she was looking for? Application? Emma smiled proudly. I made a form. Of course she did. Then another notification appeared. And another. And another. Applications began flooding in. Hundreds. Then thousands. Emma gasped dramatically. It's working. I covered my face with both hands. Somewhere, somehow, my late wife was probably laughing hysterically. Then Emma suddenly froze. Wait. Her eyes widened. What? I asked. She pointed toward the screen. A brand new application had just appeared. Victoria's smile changed. Softer now, warmer, more vulnerable. I think we're all still figuring that out. Emma immediately pointed at the screen. That's politician talk. I nearly choked, laughing. Then the interviewer surprised everyone. There's another rumor online. My stomach tightened immediately. Rumors were never good. Then the interviewer smiled. People think you might be interested in Emma's father. Silence exploded across the room. The studio audience went completely silent. I went completely silent. Emma looked delighted. Victoria actually laughed. The interviewer waited. The entire country waited. Then Victoria looked directly into the camera. My pulse forgot how to function. I think Ethan Brooks is one of the kindest men I've ever met. The room stopped. Completely stopped. Emma gasped, dramatically. I nearly died. Then Victoria continued. He's raising an incredible daughter. Another pause. That tells you everything you need to know about him. The audience immediately applauded. Meanwhile, my soul left my body. Emma was bouncing on the couch. She likes you. I covered my face. The interview ended 10 minutes later. My embarrassment did not. Then my phone started ringing. Friends, customers, neighbors, people I'd never spoken to before. Apparently, everyone in America had decided to become emotionally invested in my personal life. Wonderful. Just wonderful. The next morning things became worse. Much worse. Because Emma went to school. Children had seen the interview. Teachers had seen the interview. Parents had seen the interview. By lunchtime, half of Willow Creek was treating Victoria like a future family member. Mrs. Henderson sent flowers. The diner offered free pie. The librarian mailed a congratulation card for something that hadn't even happened yet. Then, around 3 o'clock, my phone buzzed. Victoria, I answered immediately. Tell me you're hiding from the media. She laughed. Currently? Another pause. Yes. I smiled despite myself. Then her voice softened. How's Emma? Famous. Poor kid. Silence followed. Comfortable silence. Then Victoria exhaled slowly. Can I tell you something? My pulse tightened. Sure. Another pause. Then she whispered. I almost said it. The words hit me like a truck. Said what? Silence. Complete silence. Then her answer came. Quiet. Honest. Terrifying. That I like you. My heart stopped. The world stopped. Everything stopped. Then Victoria laughed nervously. See? Another pause. This is why billionaires shouldn't do live television. I couldn't speak. Not immediately. Then I looked out the workshop window toward Willow Creek. Toward the future I hadn't dared imagine. Finally I managed one sentence. Victoria? Yeah? Silence. Complete silence. Then I smiled. I would have liked that answer. The line went quiet. Then quieter still. And for several seconds neither of us said anything. Because sometimes the most important things aren't the words people say. They're the words they almost say. Then Victoria laughed softly. The happiest laugh I'd ever heard from her. Good. Another pause. That's really good. But neither of us realized that someone else had watched that interview too. Someone from Victoria's past. Someone who had spent years regretting a decision he could never undo, and by the end of the week, he would arrive in Willow Creek with one goal: to get Victoria back, no matter what it cost. And by the end of the week, he would arrive in Willow Creek with one goal: to get Victoria back, no matter what it cost. The problem was that Victoria didn't know he was coming. Neither did I. The only person who had any warning was Ava, and unfortunately, she called at exactly the wrong time. It was Thursday evening. Emma sat at the kitchen table doing homework while I prepared dinner. My phone buzzed. Ava's name appeared on the screen. The moment I answered, I knew something was wrong. Ava? Silence. Then a sigh. I need to tell you something. My stomach tightened immediately. That's never good. No. Another pause. It isn't. Then she delivered the sentence that ruined an otherwise peaceful evening. Daniel is in town. My pulse immediately accelerated. Daniel? Silence. Then I remembered. Victoria's former fiancé. The man she'd once planned to marry. The man who had left after learning she couldn't have children. The man she'd never talked about in detail. Unlike the others, it had a blue verification badge beside the name. Emma clicked it. The room fell silent. Completely silent. Then I read the applicant's name. Victoria Hale. My pulse stopped. Every American knew that name. Victoria Hale wasn't just famous. She was one of the most powerful CEOs in the country. Billionaire. Magazine covers. Television interviews. Corporate empire. The woman practically lived on business news channels. Emma looked at me. I looked at Emma, because she didn't need to. Some wounds explain themselves. Then Ava continued. He saw the interview. Wonderful. Just wonderful. Then she added the part I hated most. And apparently he's having regrets. My stomach dropped. Regrets? Ava laughed bitterly. Funny how those show up after someone becomes America's favorite CEO. I couldn't argue with that. Then she lowered her voice. Just be careful. Before I could ask another question, she ended the call. The conversation should have stayed private. It didn't. Because 30 minutes later, Victoria called. The moment I heard her voice, I knew. She already knew about Daniel. Hey, silence followed. Not comfortable silence. Nervous silence. Then Victoria sighed. He's here. My pulse tightened. Ava told me. Another pause. Are you okay? Silence. Then a laugh. Soft. Tired. Not really. My chest tightened immediately. Then Victoria continued. I haven't spoken to him in almost 3 years. Another pause. Now, suddenly he wants coffee. The sarcasm wasn't subtle. Then she laughed again. Apparently, national television creates miracles. I smiled despite myself. Then I asked quietly, what are you going to do? Silence followed. Longer this time. Finally she answered, I don't know. The honesty worried me more than certainty would have. The next afternoon, Daniel Mercer arrived in Willow Creek. And unfortunately, I met him before Victoria did. I was unloading wood at the workshop when a black luxury sedan parked outside. A man stepped out wearing an expensive suit that probably cost more than my truck. Tall, polished, confident. The kind of confidence people develop when they've spent years getting what they want. Then he walked directly toward me. My stomach immediately dropped. Ethan Brooks? There it was. The full name. Never a good sign. Depends who's asking. The man smiled politely. Daniel Mercer. Silence. Complete silence. Then he extended his hand. I stared at it, then shook it, unfortunately. Then Daniel looked around the workshop. Nice place. Thanks. Another silence. Then he got to the point. You've been spending time with Victoria. Not a question. A statement. My pulse accelerated immediately. Maybe. Daniel smiled. Not warmly. Not coldly. Just carefully. I wanted to meet the man she can't stop talking about. The words hit harder than expected. Then Daniel laughed softly. That surprised you. A little. More than a little. Then he looked toward the town square. Victoria doesn't talk about people. Another pause. At least she never used to. Something about the way he said it bothered me. Then Daniel sighed. Look. His confidence finally cracked slightly. I'm not here to cause problems. My internal alarm system disagreed. Strongly. Then he continued. I made a mistake. Another pause. A huge one. Silence followed. Then I asked the obvious question, and now? Daniel looked down briefly. For the first time, regret appeared. Real regret. Then he answered honestly. Now, I want another chance. My stomach tightened immediately, because I knew exactly where this was going. That evening, Victoria called me from her hotel. Her voice sounded exhausted, completely exhausted. How bad was it? I asked. She laughed once, humorless, very. Then silence followed. Finally she sighed. He apologized. My pulse tightened. And? Another pause. And then he apologized again. Another pause. Then he asked if we could start over. The kitchen suddenly felt smaller. Emma sat across from me drawing dragons, completely unaware that my heart was attempting to escape through my chest. Then Victoria laughed softly. The crazy part? What? Silence. Then her voice lowered. 3 years ago, I would have said yes. My pulse stopped. Completely stopped. Then she continued before I could react. 3 years ago, I would have done anything to hear those words. Another pause. Today. Silence. Complete silence. Then she whispered. All I could think about was Willow Creek. My chest tightened painfully. Then she laughed softly. And pancakes. I smiled immediately. The pancakes are very persuasive. Apparently. Another pause. Then neither of us spoke. Because both of us understood what she wasn't saying. Finally, Victoria broke the silence. Can I ask you something? My pulse accelerated. Sure. If things were different. Another pause. Would you have applied? The question completely caught me off guard. Applied? She laughed. For the mom search. My soul briefly left my body. Then I smiled despite myself. Probably. Victoria laughed immediately. Then asked, Really? Sure. Another pause. I have excellent pancake qualifications. This time her laughter lasted longer. Warm. Genuine. Then we both looked back at the screen. The application contained only one sentence. 7 simple words. I think your daughter found me. And just like that, both of our lives changed forever. The kind of laugh that made everything else disappear. Then eventually it faded, and the silence that followed felt different, more honest, more fragile. Then Victoria whispered something so quietly I almost missed it. I wish I'd met you sooner. My heart stopped, completely stopped, because some sentences don't sound romantic, they sound true. Then before I could answer, another voice appeared in the background. Male, familiar, Daniel. My stomach dropped instantly. Victoria sighed. I have to go. Another pause. Talk tomorrow? Yeah. Silence. Then softer. Good night, Ethan. Good night, Victoria. The line disconnected. Yet I sat there staring at the phone long after the call ended, because for the first time since this entire story began, I wasn't worried about Victoria leaving. I was worried someone else might convince her to stay away. And the worst part? I wasn't sure I had any right to ask her not to. And the worst part? I wasn't sure I had any right to ask her not to. The next few days were miserable. Not dramatic, not explosive, just miserable. The kind of misery that quietly follows you everywhere. Every time my phone rang, I wondered if it was Victoria. Every time it wasn't, I felt disappointed. Then every time it was, I felt nervous, which seemed unfair. Emma noticed immediately. Children always do. On Monday morning, she watched me check my phone 3 times during breakfast. Then she sighed dramatically. You have a crush. I nearly inhaled my coffee. Excuse me? Emma looked bored. You're checking your phone like a teenager. I am not. You are. Another pause. It's embarrassing. I stared at my daughter. You're 8. And yet somehow more emotionally mature. The terrifying thing was that she might have been right. Meanwhile, 300 miles away, Victoria was dealing with her own problems. Daniel wasn't giving up. According to Ava, he'd extended his stay. Then extended it again. Then somehow managed to appear at every restaurant, meeting, and coffee shop Victoria visited. The man had apparently mistaken persistence for romance. Unfortunately, some people do. Then Wednesday evening arrived, and everything changed. I was closing the workshop when my phone rang. Victoria. The moment I answered, I knew something was wrong. Her voice sounded different, quieter, tired. Hey, hey. Silence followed, not comfortable silence, heavy silence. Then she sighed. Can I ask you something? My pulse tightened immediately. Sure. Another pause. Then she whispered, Do you think people can change? The question hit harder than expected, because I knew exactly who she was talking about. Then I leaned against the workbench. Sometimes. Silence. Then she asked the real question. Do you think Daniel changed? The workshop suddenly felt too small, too warm, too honest. Then I closed my eyes briefly, because this was the moment I'd been dreading, the moment where I could be selfish or truthful. Finally I answered, I don't know. Silence followed. Then Victoria laughed softly. That's frustratingly mature. I've been told. Another pause. Then I added quietly, but I don't think that's the important question. Silence. Complete silence. Then she asked, What's the important question? My pulse hammered. Then I answered honestly. Did you? The line went completely silent. So silent I thought the call had dropped. Then finally Victoria whispered, What? Did you change? Another pause. Because that's who has to live with the decision. The silence that followed lasted nearly 20 seconds. Then I heard something unexpected. A small laugh. Not happy, not sad. Real. Then Victoria exhaled slowly. You know what's annoying? My pulse relaxed slightly. What? You're right. Another pause. I hate when you're right. I smiled despite myself. Then neither of us spoke for a moment. Finally Victoria whispered, I think I did change. The words felt important, bigger than either of us admitted. Then she continued, 3 years ago, I would have chosen the life everyone expected me to choose. Another pause. Today. Silence followed. Then she laughed softly. Today I keep comparing luxury restaurants to pizza night. My heart immediately forgot how to function. The next day, Emma came home from school carrying a folder, which should have worried me. It definitely worried me. What is that? I asked. Emma smiled suspiciously. Homework. That was how I knew it wasn't homework. Then she handed me a sheet of paper. Across the top were 6 words. Official mom search. Follow-up report. My pulse immediately accelerated. Emma. What? Why does this exist? She looked genuinely confused. For quality assurance. Of course. Naturally. Then she pointed toward a section near the bottom. Current candidate status. And just like that, both of our lives changed forever. For several seconds, neither Emma nor I moved. We simply stared at the screen. Then I blinked. Once, twice, 3 times. The name remained there. Victoria Hale, verified account. Blue checkmark. Official profile photo. The actual Victoria Hale. Not a parody account. Not a fake profile. Not a prank. The Victoria Hale, founder and CEO of Hale Technologies. Billionaire. Business icon. One of the most recognizable women in America. Victoria Hale. Rating. Exceptional. Recommended action. Keep forever. I covered my face with both hands. There was no defense against this child. None. Then my phone buzzed. One new message. Victoria. I opened it immediately. Also, embarrassing. The message contained only a photograph. I stared at it, then smiled. Victoria sat inside a conference room surrounded by executives. Hundreds of pages covered the table. Charts, reports, financial projections. Yet in the center of the image sat a plate. On the plate was a pancake. My pulse stopped. Then a second message arrived. Board meeting. Brought my own priorities. I laughed so hard Emma immediately became suspicious. What? She demanded. Nothing. Show me. No. Dad. Emma. The battle lasted exactly 12 seconds. She won. Naturally. Then she saw the picture and grinned. See? Another pause. She's already part of the family. The terrifying thing was that I couldn't disagree. Then Friday arrived. Victoria was scheduled to return to Willow Creek for the weekend. The entire town knew. Somehow, Mrs. Henderson baked cookies. The diner prepared a welcome sign. The librarian set aside new books. It was becoming increasingly obvious that Willow Creek had adopted Victoria against her will. Around 4 o'clock, Emma sat on the porch, waiting. By 5 o'clock, she was checking the road every 30 seconds. By 6 o'clock, she looked worried. My stomach tightened, because Victoria wasn't late. Victoria was never late. Then my phone rang. Ava. My pulse immediately accelerated. Ava? Silence. Then a sigh. Don't panic. Those words have never helped anyone in human history. What's wrong? Another pause. Then she answered. Victoria's okay. My stomach dropped anyway. Ava. Daniel proposed. The world stopped. Completely stopped. Silence exploded inside my head. Then I finally managed to speak. What? Publicly. Another pause. In front of reporters. My pulse hammered so hard it hurt. Then Ava continued. And now every news channel in America is waiting to hear her answer. The porch suddenly felt too small. The air felt too thin. Then I looked through the window toward Emma. She was still sitting there waiting for headlights to appear at the end of the road, waiting for someone who had promised to come back. Then Ava whispered, Victoria hasn't answered him yet. Silence swallowed everything. Because somewhere between New York and Willow Creek, the future of all three of our lives was about to be decided. Because somewhere between New York and Willow Creek, the future of all three of our lives was about to be decided. For several seconds after hanging up, I simply stood there staring at nothing. Emma remained on the porch swing, watching the road, waiting, hoping, believing. The problem with children is that they trust promises completely. Adults know better. Adults know life gets complicated. Then Emma looked through the window and immediately knew something was wrong. She stood up and walked inside. Daddy? My pulse tightened. Yeah? What happened? Silence followed. I hated this part. The uncertainty. The not knowing. Then I sat down across from her. Victoria got delayed. Emma frowned. Why? Another pause. Then I chose honesty. Daniel proposed. The room froze. Completely froze. Emma blinked once. Then twice. Then 3 times. Like. Another pause. Marriage proposed? Yeah. Silence. Complete silence. Then my daughter did something unexpected. She rolled her eyes. Actually rolled her eyes. That's annoying. My soul briefly left my body. Annoying? Emma nodded. Very. Then she crossed her arms. He had years. The terrifying thing was that she wasn't wrong. Then she looked toward the road again. What if she says yes? The question landed harder than anything else that day, because I didn't have an answer. The truth was that Victoria deserved whatever future she chose, even if it wasn't us, especially if it wasn't us. Then I smiled gently. Then we'll be happy for her. Emma stared at me. You're lying. I sighed. A little. She nodded. Okay. Then she sat beside me. Neither of us spoke. The evening sunlight slowly faded. The road remained empty. Then my phone rang. Victoria. My pulse immediately exploded. I answered before the first ring finished. Victoria? Silence. Then her voice. Soft. Exhausted. Emotional. Hey. My entire chest tightened. Emma looked up at me. Daddy? My voice sounded strange when I answered. Yeah? Is that the real one? I swallowed. Unfortunately. Emma gasped dramatically. She wants to be my mom. My soul immediately attempted to leave my body. No, but absolutely not. Emma frowned. Why? I pointed at the screen. Because she's a billionaire CEO. So? The child had a point, an annoying point. Then I rubbed my forehead. Emma, people like Victoria Hale don't answer random internet posts. Are you okay? Another pause. Then she laughed once. The kind of laugh people make when they've had the longest day of their lives. Not really. Silence followed. Then I asked the question I didn't want to ask. What happened? The line grew quiet. Then Victoria answered. I said no. My heart stopped. Completely stopped. Then she continued. Daniel asked in front of cameras. Another pause. In front of reporters. Another pause. In front of half of Manhattan. Her voice softened, and I said no. I closed my eyes. Relief flooded through me so fast it almost hurt. Then Victoria laughed softly. That's probably a terrible thing to feel relieved about. Probably. Another pause. I'm still feeling it. For a second, neither of us spoke. Then she whispered, "Do you know why I said no?" My pulse tightened. Why? Silence followed. Then her answer came. Simple. Honest. Perfect. Because I realized I was comparing him to a man who builds furniture and burns toast. My soul officially surrendered. Then Victoria laughed through tears, which sounds insane when I say it out loud. A little. A lot. Another pause. Then her voice grew quieter. The truth is, my heart hammered. I wasn't thinking about Daniel. Silence swallowed the line. Then she whispered, I was thinking about Willow Creek. Another pause. I was thinking about Emma. Another pause. And I was thinking about you. The words settled over me like sunlight. Warm. Certain. Real. Then I heard something unexpected. A car door closing. My pulse immediately accelerated. Victoria? She laughed softly. Look outside. My heart stopped. Then I turned toward the window. Headlights. At the end of the driveway, a black SUV. Emma saw it at exactly the same moment. She's here. The child practically broke the laws of physics. 1 second she was beside me. The next she was sprinting toward the front door. I followed more slowly, mostly because my legs had forgotten how to work. The SUV door opened, Victoria stepped out, and before she could say a single word, Emma launched herself into her arms. Victoria laughed and caught her immediately, tears already shining in her eyes. Then Emma pulled back slightly. Did you say no? Direct? Efficient? Ruthless? Victoria laughed. Yes, good. Another pause. That would have been awkward. The CEO of a multi-billion-dollar company laughed so hard, she nearly dropped the child. Then her eyes found mine, and everything else disappeared. The road, the house, the town, just her. Then she slowly walked toward me. Emma wisely stepped aside. Apparently, even children know when it's time to leave adults alone. Finally, Victoria stopped in front of me, close enough that I could see every emotion she was trying to hide. Then she smiled. Small, nervous, beautiful. Hi, hi. Silence followed. Not awkward silence. The kind that comes when words are too small. Then Victoria took a breath. I spent years chasing the life I thought I wanted. Another pause. Then Emma posted one ridiculous advertisement. I laughed softly. It was pretty ridiculous. Extremely ridiculous. She smiled. Then her eyes softened. And somehow it led me here. My pulse hammered. Then she whispered, I don't want to leave anymore. The words hit harder than any declaration of love ever could. Because they weren't about romance, they were about choice. Then I stepped closer. Good. Victoria looked up. Good? I nodded. Because I don't want you to leave either. Tears appeared instantly. Real tears. Happy tears. Then she laughed through them. You know. Another pause. For someone who talks to hammers, you're pretty good at this. I laughed. Then, finally, after months of messages, interviews, pancakes, viral posts, family weekends, and impossible feelings, I kissed her, right there in the driveway, under the porch light. While Emma cheered like she'd just won a championship, the next year passed faster than anyone expected. Victoria kept her company, but she changed her life. She opened a Hale Technologies community center in Willow Creek. She spent more weekends in town than in New York. Eventually, she bought a house 5 minutes from ours. Then, one spring afternoon, Emma came home from school carrying another folder. My pulse immediately accelerated. No. Emma looked confused. What? Whatever's in that folder. Another pause. No. She rolled her eyes dramatically, then handed it to Victoria. Curious, Victoria opened it. Across the top were 6 words. Mom search. Final results report. Victoria immediately started laughing. So did I. Then she read the final line out loud. Candidate name, Victoria Hale. Status, approved. Recommendation, keep forever. Signed, Emma Brooks. For several seconds nobody spoke. Then Victoria looked at Emma, then at me, then back at the report. Emma looked at the screen again. She literally did. Another annoying point. Then another notification appeared. New message received. Both of us froze. Emma clicked it before I could stop her. The message was short. Hello, Emma. I hope it's okay that I applied. Your list of requirements made me laugh. Especially the pancake one. I take pancakes very seriously. Emma squealed so loudly that our dog barked from the next room. My pulse accelerated. Then another message appeared. Also, tears filled her eyes. Forever? Emma nodded. Forever. Another pause. That's the whole point. 2 years later, Victoria Hale officially became Emma's stepmother. 3 years later, nobody in Willow Creek could remember a time when she wasn't family. And whenever reporters asked the billionaire CEO how she found happiness, she always gave the same answer. Not through money, not through success, not through power, through a little girl who posted an advertisement online looking for a mom, because sometimes the people we're searching for are also searching for us, and sometimes all it takes to find them is the courage to ask. The end. Your dad seems like he could use some help. Emma nearly fell out of her chair laughing. I did not. Then a third message arrived. Would you mind if I asked a few questions before the interview process begins? Emma looked at me with the excitement of a child who had just discovered magic. Interview process. I buried my face in my hands. This could not possibly be happening. Yet it was. Then Emma tugged on my sleeve. Can I answer? No. Why? Because you're 8. A quiet town where everybody knows everybody and nobody minds being in your business. 4 years ago, my wife Hannah died after a battle with leukemia. Since then, it's just been me and my daughter Emma. She's 8 years old, impossibly stubborn, dangerously intelligent, and somehow convinced she knows more about life than I do. The annoying part is that she's right more often than she should be. That's age discrimination. I stared at my daughter. Where did you even learn that? She pointed toward the internet, which somehow made everything worse. Then another message arrived. I should probably mention that I'm terrible at baking. If baking is required, I may already be eliminated. Emma immediately grabbed the keyboard. Dad. What? She seems nice. The terrifying part was that she did. Then Emma typed before I could intervene. Dear Victoria, baking is optional. Pancakes are not. I watched the message send. My parental authority had officially collapsed. 10 seconds later, a reply arrived. That's fair. I respect your standards. Emma giggled. Then she typed again. Question 1. Do you like dogs? The response came almost immediately. I love dogs. Emma pumped her fist in victory. Good answer. Then she looked at me. Can we keep her? I nearly choked. She's not a goldfish. The conversation should have ended there. It didn't. 45 minutes later, Emma and Victoria had exchanged 27 messages. They discussed dogs, pancakes, favorite books, favorite movies, why broccoli was suspicious, whether dragons would make good pets. Apparently billionaires had opinions about dragons. Around message 28, I finally intervened. Okay. I closed the laptop. Enough. Emma looked horrified. But we're interviewing. No. But no. She crossed her arms dramatically. You're ruining democracy. I pointed toward the staircase. Bed. Emma groaned so loudly the neighbors probably heard it. Then she stood up. Halfway to the stairs, she stopped. Daddy? Yeah? Her expression softened. Do you think Mom would have liked her? The question hit harder than anything else that night. The room became quiet. Then I smiled sadly. I think your mom would have liked anyone who made you smile. Emma nodded slowly, then disappeared upstairs, leaving me alone with the laptop and the conversation. For several minutes I simply stared at the screen. Then curiosity won. I opened Victoria Hale's profile. Hundreds of articles, interviews, speeches, magazine covers, awards, photographs. The public version of Victoria Hale looked intimidating, powerful, brilliant, untouchable. Yet the woman messaging Emma about pancakes felt completely different. Then a new message appeared, this time addressed to me. Hello, Ethan. My pulse immediately tightened. I stared at the screen for several seconds before opening it. First, I owe you an apology. I probably shouldn't have responded. The internet is a strange place. Second, your daughter is extraordinary. Third, I promise I'm not actually trying to become anyone's mother. Relief washed over me immediately. Then I kept reading. But I did want to tell you something. My stomach tightened again. Sometimes children say exactly what adults are afraid to admit. I read the sentence 3 times. Then another message arrived. She doesn't seem to be searching for a mother. She seems to be searching for someone who won't leave. Silence swallowed the kitchen, because suddenly the entire situation looked different. Not funny. Not viral. Not ridiculous. Just honest. Painfully honest. Then Victoria sent one final message. Anyway, congratulations. Your daughter just made half the country cry. Good night, Ethan. The screen went dark. The conversation ended, yet I couldn't stop thinking about that sentence. Someone who won't leave. Around midnight, I checked on Emma before going to bed. She slept curled beneath her blanket, clutching a stuffed rabbit she'd owned since she was 3. On her nightstand sat a framed photograph of Hannah, my wife, her mother. 4 years later, Emma still said goodnight to that picture every evening. Then I noticed something lying beside it. A notebook. Curious, I opened it. Big mistake. The first page contained a handwritten title, Potential Moms. Beneath it was a list. Teachers, neighbors, friends, parents from school, television celebrities, fictional characters. One page simply said Wonder Woman. Another said Taylor Swift. Then I reached the final page. A sentence was written across the bottom in small handwriting. I miss having someone to tell my secrets to. My heart broke instantly. Completely. Then I closed the notebook and quietly left the room. Downstairs, I stared out the kitchen window into the darkness. The house felt too quiet. Too empty. 4 years after losing Hannah, I'd spent so much time making sure Emma was okay that I'd never asked whether she was lonely. Really lonely. Then my phone buzzed. A new email notification. Sender, Victoria Hale. Subject line, Official Mom. Search application. My pulse accelerated immediately. Against my better judgment, I opened it. Attached was a completed application form, every question answered. That Tuesday morning she sat at the kitchen table eating pancakes while staring at me with the same expression people use when they're evaluating a broken appliance. What? I asked. Emma sighed dramatically. Nothing. Whenever a child says nothing like that, it absolutely means something. Emma. She took another bite of pancake. I just think you're lonely. I nearly choked on my coffee. Excuse me? Lonely. Another bite. You talk to power tools more than humans. Every box filled out. At the bottom, under why do you think you'd be a good candidate? Victoria had written only one sentence. Because every child deserves someone who stays. And for the second time that night, I found myself staring at words from a woman I'd never met, while wondering why they felt so personal. And for the second time that night, I found myself staring at words from a woman I'd never met while wondering why they felt so personal. The next morning, I convinced myself I was overthinking everything. That usually works for about 10 minutes. By breakfast, I was already checking my email again. No new messages from Victoria, which should have been a relief. Instead, it felt strangely disappointing. Then Emma appeared in the kitchen wearing mismatched socks and carrying her stuffed rabbit. Did she write back? My pulse immediately tightened. Good morning to you too. Emma climbed into her chair. That's not an answer. You are 8 years old. And that's supposed to mean something. She looked unconvinced. Then she reached for a pancake. So? I sighed. Yes. Emma gasped dramatically. What did she say? I handed her the printed application. Big mistake. The child treated it like a college admissions essay. She read every word carefully. Twice. Then she nodded. Strong candidate. My soul briefly left my body. Emma. What? Stop evaluating billionaires like they're applying for summer camp. She ignored me completely. Then her eyes widened. She likes dogs. Yes. And pancakes. Apparently. And books. Another pause. This is looking very promising. The terrifying part was that she sounded exactly like a hiring manager. The rest of the morning passed peacefully. Too peacefully. Around lunchtime, The piece ended. Because the local news found us. I was helping a customer choose a dining table when a television crew walked into the workshop. The cameraman entered first, then a reporter, then another camera operator. My pulse immediately accelerated. "Can I help you?" The reporter smiled professionally. "Ethan Brooks?" Never trust anyone who says your full name with that much enthusiasm. "Maybe. We're from Channel 7 News." "Wonderful. Just wonderful." The reporter held up a microphone. "We'd love to discuss your daughter's viral mom search." My soul attempted to escape again. "No. Just a few questions." "No. 5 minutes." Still no. The reporter looked genuinely disappointed. Then Emma appeared from the office carrying a juice box. My heart stopped, completely stopped. The reporter's eyes lit up immediately. "Emma." The child waved. "Hi. Traitor. Absolute traitor." 10 minutes later, we were somehow being interviewed. I still don't know how it happened. 1 minute I was refusing. The next minute Emma was explaining her recruitment strategy to regional television. "What qualities are you looking for in a mother?" the reporter asked. Emma thought carefully. "Nice." Another pause. "Funny." Another pause. "And somebody who doesn't leave when things get hard." The entire room fell silent. The reporter lowered her microphone slightly. Even the cameraman looked emotional. Meanwhile, I stared at my daughter and wondered how many feelings she'd been carrying without telling me. Then the reporter smiled gently. "And what about Victoria Hale?" Emma brightened instantly. "She's in the finals." The interview aired that evening. By the next morning, the story had exploded again. National news picked it up. Parenting blogs shared it. Morning talk shows discussed it. The phrase, "mom search," began trending online. I hated all of it. Emma loved every second. Then, around noon, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost ignored it. Almost. "Hello?" Silence. Then a woman's voice. Calm, elegant, familiar. "Hi, Ethan." My pulse immediately stopped, because I'd heard that voice before. Television interviews, podcasts, business conferences. Victoria Hale. I sat up so quickly I nearly fell out of my chair. "Victoria?" A soft laugh. "Good. I was worried you'd hang up before I introduced myself." My entire workshop suddenly felt too small. Then she continued. "I hope this isn't strange." It was extremely strange. "A little." She laughed again. The sound surprised me. Warm. Human. Nothing like the intimidating CEO everyone knew. Then Victoria sighed softly. "I wanted to call before this becomes any bigger." My pulse tightened. "Bigger? Trust me." Another pause. "It can always get bigger." That sounded terrifyingly experienced. Then silence settled between us. Not uncomfortable. Just unexpected. Finally Victoria spoke again. I stared at my daughter. "I own a furniture workshop." "Exactly." She pointed her fork at me. "Normal people don't have favorite hammers." The worst part was that I actually did have a favorite hammer. Then Emma shook her head sadly. "Mom would have thought that was weird." The room immediately fell quiet. It still happens sometimes. 4 years later, grief could sneak into a conversation without warning. I looked down at my coffee cup. Emma looked down at her plate. Then she smiled softly. "Your daughter seems wonderful." I smiled despite myself. "She is." Another pause. "Exhausting." Victoria laughed immediately. I figured. Then something shifted in her voice. Softer now, more serious. "I wasn't joking when I sent that application." My pulse accelerated. "What do you mean?" Silence. Then she answered honestly. "I mean, I saw her post." Another pause. And it broke my heart. The workshop suddenly felt very quiet. Then Victoria continued. "Most people saw something funny." Another pause. "I saw a little girl trying to solve a problem adults couldn't fix." Her words landed harder than expected. Because she understood. Somehow, she understood. Then I found myself asking a question before I could stop it. "Why did it affect you?" Silence followed. Longer this time. Then Victoria exhaled slowly. "Because 10 years ago." Another pause. "I thought I'd have a family too." My pulse tightened immediately. Something painful moved beneath those words. Something unfinished. Then she laughed softly, though there was sadness behind it. "Life had other plans." I didn't push. Some wounds announce themselves even when people don't explain them. Then Victoria changed the subject. Can I ask you something? Sure. Would Emma be upset if I withdrew my application? My stomach dropped instantly. Why? Another pause. Because this has become public. Another pause. And I don't want her hurt if people turn it into a joke. The concern in her voice surprised me. It sounded genuine, protective. Then I answered honestly. She'd be disappointed. Silence. Complete silence. Then Victoria laughed softly. That's what I was afraid of. Another pause. Okay. My pulse tightened. Okay? Okay? She sounded oddly determined now. Then I guess I stay in the running. My soul briefly left my body. Again. Then she added. Besides. Another pause. I've never actually been a finalist for anything involving pancakes. Before I could answer, another voice appeared on the line. Male. Professional. Alarmed. Victoria, the board meeting starts in 2 minutes. Victoria sighed dramatically. See? Another pause. Back to reality. Then her voice softened again. Tell Emma, good luck with the interviews. I blinked. Interviews? She's scheduling them. Silence exploded through my workshop. She's what? Victoria laughed so hard she almost dropped the phone. Oh, another pause. You didn't know. My pulse immediately accelerated. Then Victoria delivered the sentence that made my blood run cold. Ethan. She was still laughing. Your daughter just emailed me a calendar invitation for Saturday. Silence swallowed the room. Because somewhere inside my house, completely unsupervised, my 8-year-old daughter had apparently organized the first official interview in her nationwide search for a mother, and somehow, the most famous CEO in America had accepted. And somehow, the most famous CEO in America had accepted. For several seconds, I simply stood in the middle of my workshop holding the phone like it had personally betrayed me. Then Victoria's laughter finally faded. You sound concerned. Concerned? I repeated. My daughter scheduled a meeting with a billionaire without my permission. Victoria laughed again. When you say it like that, it does sound slightly alarming. Slightly alarming. Right. Then I rubbed my forehead. What exactly did the invitation say? Silence. Then Victoria cleared her throat dramatically. Official mom search finalist interview. My soul left my body. There's more. Of course there was. Please don't tell me. Attendance mandatory. I closed my eyes. She's your problem now too. Victoria sounded far too pleased about that. I'll see you Saturday, Ethan. Then the line disconnected. I stared at my phone for several seconds. Then I immediately called home. Emma answered on the second ring. Hi, Daddy. Emma. Yes? Did you schedule an interview with Victoria Hale? Silence. Complete silence. The kind of silence only guilty children produce. Then she answered carefully. Maybe. My pulse accelerated. Emma. What? You cannot invite billionaires to our house. Why not? The terrifying thing about children is that they demand actual explanations. Then I sighed. Because that's not normal. Emma sounded genuinely confused. She would have laughed, though. I smiled, too. Yeah. Another pause. She would have. The moment passed. Like it always did. Not gone. Just folded away again. Then I checked the time and nearly had a heart attack. We're late. 5 minutes later, I dropped Emma off at school and headed toward the workshop. The rest of the day felt normal. Orders, clients, sawdust, measurements, more sawdust. Around noon, I received a text message from Emma's teacher. Neither is a nationwide mom search. Unfortunately, she had a point. A very annoying point. Then she continued. Besides, she said yes. As if that solved everything. The next 2 days passed in absolute chaos. News coverage continued growing. Applications continued arriving. Thousands of women from across the country submitted forms. Teachers, nurses, veterinarians, librarians, 1 astronaut, 2 television actresses, 3 grandmothers who apparently felt qualified. Emma reviewed every application with alarming professionalism. She created spreadsheets, actual spreadsheets. I didn't know whether to be proud or terrified. Then Saturday arrived, the day of the interview. I woke up before sunrise. Not because I wanted to, because anxiety doesn't believe in sleeping late. Downstairs, Emma was already awake, which should have worried me immediately. The kitchen looked like a command center. Papers covered the table. Notebooks, clipboards, color-coded folders. My daughter had apparently spent the entire week preparing. "What is all this?" I asked. Emma looked up. "Interview materials." My pulse tightened. "Interview materials?" She nodded seriously. "I need to be organized." The child looked like she was preparing to hire a Supreme Court justice. Then she handed me a sheet of paper. Official Mom Search Scoring Rubric. I stared at it. Categories included pancake skills, hug quality, listening ability, dog friendliness, dad compatibility. My soul briefly exited my body again. Dad compatibility? Emma shrugged. "It's important." Then she looked at the clock. "We should clean. The house is already clean." She looked horrified, not billionaire clean. That turned out to be a completely different standard. 3 hours later, every surface in the house sparkled. The dog had been brushed twice. The windows had been cleaned. The refrigerator had somehow been organized alphabetically. Then came the waiting, which was somehow worse. Around 1 o'clock, a black SUV appeared at the end of our street. My pulse immediately accelerated. Emma nearly launched herself through the living room window. "She's here." The SUV slowly approached, then stopped in front of the house. The driver stepped out first. Then another vehicle arrived behind it. Then another. My stomach dropped. Security. Of course. Billionaire CEOs apparently traveled with small armies. Then the rear passenger door opened, and Victoria Hale stepped out. For a moment, everything became strangely quiet. She looked exactly like the woman from magazine covers. Elegant, confident, beautiful, dark hair moving gently in the summer breeze, simple navy blue dress. No flashy jewelry, no dramatic entrance, just Victoria. Then something unexpected happened. She looked nervous, not intimidating, not powerful, nervous, like she was the one being interviewed. Emma didn't give anyone time to process this. She flew out the front door and sprinted across the yard. "Victoria!" Every security guard immediately looked terrified. Victoria laughed and opened her arms. Emma collided with her at full speed. Somehow the CEO remained standing. Barely. Then Victoria smiled down at her. "Hi, Emma. You came." "I did." Another pause. "I wasn't sure if you'd notice." Emma looked offended. "Of course I'd notice." Then she grabbed Victoria's hand and started dragging her toward the house. "We have a schedule." Victoria looked at me helplessly. I offered no assistance whatsoever. Some situations are beyond saving. 5 minutes later, Victoria sat at our kitchen table while Emma reviewed the interview rules. The CEO of a multi-billion-dollar corporation listened attentively, which somehow made the entire thing even stranger. "Question 1, Emma announced. Victoria nodded seriously. "I'm ready. Do you like pancakes?" Victoria immediately answered. "Very much." Emma wrote something on her clipboard, then narrowed her eyes. "How much?" Victoria considered this carefully. "Enough to eat them for dinner." Emma gasped. Strong answer. The interview continued. Favorite books. Favorite movies. Opinions on dogs. Opinions on homework. Opinions on bedtime. Victoria somehow handled every question perfectly. Then Emma asked the one question that changed the atmosphere completely. "Why don't you have kids?" Silence. Complete silence. My stomach immediately dropped. Victoria froze. Not dramatically. Just enough. Then she smiled gently. "That's a good question." Emma waited patiently. Victoria looked down at the table for several seconds. Then she answered honestly. "Because life didn't work out the way I thought it would." The room grew quiet. Then Emma asked softly, "Does that make you sad?" My pulse tightened. Because suddenly this wasn't an interview anymore. It was something else. Something real. Then Victoria smiled. For one terrifying second I thought something had happened. Then I opened it. The message simply read, "Emma has been unusually interested in internet research today. Just keeping you informed." I laughed. Big mistake. Whenever adults laugh at warnings from teachers, the universe usually punishes them. Around 6 o'clock I finally closed the workshop and drove home. The moment I opened the front door, Emma came sprinting toward me. "Daddy." The excitement in her voice immediately worried me. Small, honest, vulnerable, sometimes. Another pause. "Yes." Emma looked at her for several seconds, then did something none of us expected. She walked around the table and hugged her, just like that. No hesitation, no awkwardness. One moment she was standing there. The next, her arms were wrapped around Victoria. The room went completely silent. Victoria stopped breathing. At least, it looked that way. Then slowly, very slowly, she hugged Emma back, and for the briefest moment, I saw tears in her eyes. Real tears, the kind people spend years trying to hide. Then Emma pulled away and smiled. "That's okay." Victoria blinked. "What?" Emma shrugged. "Everybody gets sad." Another pause. Even moms. The words hit harder than they should have, because suddenly nobody was laughing anymore. Nobody was pretending. Then Victoria looked at Emma with an expression I'd never seen before. Not amusement, not kindness, something deeper, something almost painful. Then she whispered, "You're a remarkable kid." Emma smiled proudly. "I know." The moment shattered. Victoria laughed through tears. I laughed too, but somewhere deep inside, something had changed. Because this was no longer a funny viral story, no longer a strange internet moment. Victoria Hale had walked into our house as a finalist in a child's imaginary mom search. But as I watched her sitting beside Emma at the kitchen table, smiling in a way that looked completely different from every magazine cover I'd ever seen, I realized something that scared me more than anything else. For the first time since this entire madness started, I think she actually wanted the job. For the first time since this entire madness started, I think she actually wanted the job. The realization followed me for the rest of the afternoon. Victoria stayed nearly 4 hours. 4 hours. A woman who managed a company worth billions of dollars somehow spent an entire Saturday helping an 8-year-old organize crayons and judge homemade lemonade recipes. Nothing about it made sense, yet somehow it felt completely natural. Around 3 o'clock, Emma officially concluded the interview process. She stood at the kitchen table holding her clipboard while Victoria sat across from her trying very hard not to laugh. After careful consideration, Emma announced, "I have reached a decision." Victoria nodded solemnly. "I'm very nervous." "You should be." The child looked down at her notes. There was strong competition. My pulse tightened. "Strong competition?" Emma pointed toward a folder. "The veterinarian scored very well." Victoria placed a hand over her heart dramatically. "Not the veterinarian." "And the astronaut had excellent credentials." Victoria gasped. "I never had a chance." Emma fought a smile. Then finally she looked up. "Congratulations." Another pause. "You've advanced to the next round." Victoria immediately stood up and raised both arms in victory. "Yes." Emma burst into laughter. So did I. The entire situation was ridiculous. Completely ridiculous. Yet neither of them seemed interested in stopping. Then Victoria looked at Emma. "What's the next round?" Emma smiled mischievously. The expression should have terrified us. It didn't. Real life. Silence. Complete silence. Then Victoria blinked. "Real life?" Emma nodded. "You have to spend time with us." My pulse immediately accelerated. "Emma, what? You cannot create additional rounds." "Why not?" Another one of those impossible questions. Then Victoria surprised me. "I think that's fair." I looked at her. "You do?" She shrugged. "Most interviews have multiple stages." I was being outnumbered in my own house. The next week changed everything. It started innocently enough. Victoria began texting Emma. Not constantly, just enough. A funny photo here, a dog video there, a joke, a recommendation for a children's book. Then the calls started. Short conversations at first. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15. Before long, it became part of Emma's routine. School, homework, dinner, quick call with Victoria. Every evening, without fail. The strange part wasn't that Victoria made time for it. The strange part was how much she seemed to enjoy it. One Thursday evening, I walked into the living room and found Emma holding the phone while explaining an elaborate theory involving squirrels and world domination. Victoria was listening seriously, taking notes, actual notes. They're organizing, Emma explained. Nobody pays attention because they're cute. What happened? Nothing. She smiled way too widely. Then why are you smiling like that? Emma looked offended. Maybe I'm just happy. She wasn't. Not entirely. There was a secret. I could practically see it. Then she grabbed my hand and dragged me into the kitchen. Sit. My pulse immediately accelerated. Why? Just sit. Children become terrifying when they start issuing instructions. Nevertheless, I sat down. Victoria nodded. Classic misdirection. I stood there for several seconds trying to process what I was hearing. Then Emma noticed me. Daddy. She covered the phone. Victoria agrees with me. Of course she did. Later that night, after Emma went to bed, my phone buzzed. Victoria. For a moment I considered ignoring it. Then I answered. Hello? Good evening. Her voice immediately made me smile, which was annoying. Then she laughed softly. You sound tired. I raised Emma. Fair point. Silence followed. Comfortable silence. Unexpected silence. Then Victoria spoke again. She's amazing. My chest tightened slightly. Yeah. Another pause. She is. Then Victoria laughed softly. Do you know what she asked me today? My pulse immediately accelerated. Should I be worried? Probably. That was not reassuring. Then Victoria continued. She wanted to know whether CEOs get timeouts. I started laughing immediately. And? I told her board meetings are basically adult timeouts. That somehow sounded accurate. Then the conversation drifted naturally. Emma. Books. Willow Creek. Her company. My workshop. Nothing dramatic. Nothing romantic. Yet when we finally hung up nearly an hour later, I realized something uncomfortable. I had enjoyed it. A lot. The following Saturday, Victoria came back. Then she came back the Saturday after that, then again. Soon the entire town started treating her like a resident. Mrs. Henderson saved her a seat at the diner. The librarian recommended books. The bakery owner memorized her coffee order. Willow Creek had quietly adopted one of the most famous women in America, and Victoria seemed happier every time she arrived. One afternoon I found her sitting alone on the dock near Willow Creek Lake. The sun reflected across the water. The town looked peaceful, small, simple. Then Victoria smiled without looking at me. This place is dangerous. I sat beside her. Dangerous? She nodded. I spent 20 years believing success would make me happy. Another pause. Then I come here. Her eyes drifted toward the lake, and suddenly my favorite part of the week is helping an 8-year-old feed ducks. The honesty in her voice surprised me. Then she looked at me. That's not normal, right? My pulse tightened. Probably not. She laughed. Then silence settled between us, the comfortable kind. The kind that only exists when two people stop trying to impress each other. Finally, Victoria spoke again. Can I tell you something? Sure. Her expression changed. Softer now. More vulnerable. I almost didn't apply. My stomach tightened. Really? She nodded. I saw Emma's post at 2 a.m. Another pause. I couldn't sleep. Then she looked down at her hands. I read it 3 times. Another pause. Then 5 times. The lake breeze moved gently around us. Then she smiled sadly. Most people saw a funny story. Her voice lowered. I saw a little girl asking someone not to leave. The words landed heavily between us. Then Victoria looked toward the horizon, and I understood exactly what that felt like. Silence followed, longer this time. Then I asked quietly, why? Victoria didn't answer immediately. Instead, she stared across the water. The smile disappeared. For the first time since I'd met her, loneliness appeared. Real loneliness. Deep loneliness. The kind that doesn't arrive overnight. The kind that takes years to build. Then she whispered, because I've spent most of my life watching people leave. My pulse stopped. Completely stopped. Then she laughed softly. A sad sound. Maybe that's why Emma scares me. I looked at her. Scares you? Victoria nodded. She makes everything feel important. Another pause. And people only have that kind of power when you care about them. The confession lingered in the evening air. Then, before I could answer, my phone rang. Emma. I smiled immediately and answered, What's wrong? Nothing. She sounded offended. Why do you always think something's wrong? Fair question. Then she continued. I have news. My pulse tightened. News from Emma was rarely simple. What news? Silence. Complete silence. Then she announced the words that would change everything again. Victoria made the final round. I looked toward the woman sitting beside me. Victoria covered her face, already laughing. Then Emma delivered the sentence neither of us were prepared for. The final round is a family weekend. Silence exploded across the lake. Because somehow, without telling either of us, my daughter had just invited Victoria Hale to spend an entire weekend living with us. And judging by the excitement in Victoria's eyes, she wasn't planning to say no. Emma climbed into the chair across from me and folded her hands dramatically. I fixed a problem. My stomach dropped. Completely. What problem? She smiled proudly. The mom problem. Silence. Complete silence. Then I blinked. Once. Twice. 3 times. The what? The mom problem. Another pause. You don't have one. My soul briefly left my body. Emma. What? You can't just say things like that. She shrugged. It's true. Then she leaned forward. So I fixed it. And judging by the excitement in Victoria's eyes, she wasn't planning to say no. For several seconds, I simply stared at the phone. Then I stared at Victoria. Then I stared at the lake. I was looking for answers. The lake offered none. Emma, I said carefully, what exactly is a family weekend? Silence. Then my daughter answered with the confidence of someone who had absolutely no authority to make these decisions. It's where Victoria lives with us for 3 days. My pulse immediately exploded. 3 days? Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Emma, what? You can't just schedule human beings. Victoria was laughing too hard to help. Then Emma continued. I already made an itinerary. Of course she did. Somewhere in the distance, a bird flew away, probably sensing danger. Then Victoria finally managed to speak. Can I see the itinerary? Absolutely. My soul left my body. The email arrived 30 seconds later. Victoria opened it immediately. Big mistake. The moment she started reading, she laughed so hard tears appeared in her eyes. What? I asked. She turned the screen toward me. Family weekend schedule. Friday, pizza night. Saturday morning, pancake test. Saturday afternoon, lake adventure. Saturday evening, family movie. Sunday morning, dog walk. Sunday lunch, final evaluation. My daughter had essentially created a corporate retreat. Then Victoria pointed toward the bottom. Final goal, determine long-term mom potential. I covered my face with both hands. I can't believe this is my life. Victoria smiled. I kind of love it. That should have worried me more than it did. 3 days later, a black SUV parked outside our house on Friday afternoon. This time, however, there was only one vehicle. No security team, no assistants, no entourage, just Victoria. She stepped out carrying a duffel bag and wearing jeans, sneakers, and a simple sweater. She looked less like a billionaire CEO and more like someone visiting family for the weekend. The thought made my chest tighten unexpectedly. Then Emma flew out the front door. You're here. Victoria barely had time to set down her bag before being tackled. Again. At this point, she was getting better at catching enthusiastic children. Then Emma grabbed her hand immediately. We're behind schedule. Victoria looked alarmed. Already? Pizza starts in 42 minutes. The child had timed it. Of course she had. The weekend officially began with pizza night, which should have been simple. Instead, it turned into a disaster. A hilarious disaster. Emma insisted everyone make their own pizza. Unfortunately, Victoria had never made pizza before. Apparently, billionaires don't receive mandatory pizza training. 20 minutes later, flour covered the kitchen, cheese covered the floor. Tomato sauce covered a section of wall that still defies explanation. Then Victoria held up her pizza proudly. It looked like a crime scene. Emma stared at it for several seconds. Interesting. Victoria narrowed her eyes. That's not a compliment. No. Another pause. It's not. The next morning began with the pancake test. According to Emma, this was the most important event of the weekend. She treated it with the seriousness of a presidential election. Victoria woke up early, prepared ingredients, studied recipes, took notes, actual notes. Then she spent an hour making pancakes. Meanwhile, Emma sat at the kitchen table acting like a food critic. Finally, the first pancake arrived. Emma took a bite, chewed carefully, thought deeply, then nodded. Acceptable. Victoria looked horrified. Acceptable? The veterinarian scored higher. Silence. Complete silence. Then Victoria laughed so hard she nearly dropped the spatula. By noon the house felt different. Comfortable. Familiar. Iasi. Like we'd been doing this for years instead of weeks. That realization bothered me more than I wanted to admit. Then came the lake adventure. Emma's idea. Naturally, we rented a small rowboat and spent the afternoon on Willow Creek Lake. The weather was perfect, the water calm, the sky clear, everything should have been peaceful. Then Emma decided we needed a race. A race? I repeated. Yep. In a rowboat? Yep. Victoria smiled. I like this plan. That should have been my warning. 10 minutes later, Victoria and Emma had somehow convinced me to participate. 5 minutes after that, we were all soaked. Apparently none of us understood how rowing worked. At one point the boat spun in a complete circle for no reason. Emma declared victory anyway. Then something happened that I would remember for a very long time. The boat drifted into a quiet section of the lake. Emma sat at the front dangling her fingers in the water. The afternoon sun reflected across the surface. Every parental instinct I possessed started screaming. What did you do? Emma looked genuinely surprised that I didn't already know. Then she reached into her backpack and pulled out a folded piece of paper. Across the top, written in giant colorful letters, were 3 words. Wanted. A mom. My heart stopped. Completely stopped. Then I slowly unfolded the paper. Requirements. Must like pancakes. Must hug when people are sad. Must not be mean to my dad. Everything became still. Then I looked at Victoria. She was smiling, not laughing, not posing, just smiling quietly while watching Emma. There was something different about it, something softer, more vulnerable. Then Victoria noticed me looking. Our eyes met. For several seconds neither of us looked away. My pulse immediately forgot how to function. Then Emma interrupted. Naturally, you're staring. Both of us jumped. Victoria laughed immediately. I looked toward the lake and considered swimming home. That evening came movie night. Emma chose a family film involving talking animals and questionable life lessons. Halfway through, she fell asleep. One moment she was explaining the plot. The next she was gone, completely asleep. Her head rested against Victoria's shoulder. The room became very quiet. The television continued playing softly in the background. Neither of us moved. Then Victoria carefully brushed a curl away from Emma's face. The gesture looked natural, instinctive, almost familiar. My chest tightened. Then Victoria spoke without looking at me. She's amazing. Yeah. Silence followed. Then Victoria smiled sadly. You know what the worst part is? My pulse tightened. What? She looked down at the sleeping child beside her. I'm starting to forget this isn't real. The words hit harder than they should have, because the truth was, I was starting to forget too. Then Victoria laughed softly. That's probably dangerous. Probably. Another pause. Very dangerous. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. The television continued playing. Emma continued sleeping. The house felt warm and peaceful, and entirely too much like a family. Then Victoria turned toward me. Her gray eyes seemed unusually bright. Then she asked a question that completely caught me off guard. Ethan. My pulse accelerated immediately. Yeah? Silence. Complete silence. Then she whispered, Have you ever thought about falling in love again? The room suddenly felt very small, because for the first time since this entire story began, neither of us was talking about Emma anymore. Because for the first time since this entire story began, neither of us was talking about Emma anymore. The question hung in the air between us. The movie continued playing softly in the background. Emma slept peacefully against Victoria's shoulder. And suddenly I felt like the entire room had shifted. Just a little. Enough to matter. Then I laughed softly. Mostly because I had no idea what else to do. That's a dangerous question. Victoria smiled. I noticed. Silence followed. Then she looked back toward the television. You don't have to answer. The truth was, I wanted to answer. I just wasn't sure I liked the answer. Finally, I sighed. For a long time, no, my voice sounded quieter than usual. After Hannah died, I couldn't imagine it. Another pause. It felt wrong. Victoria nodded slowly, like she understood that feeling. Then I continued. Eventually, it stopped feeling wrong. Another pause. It just stopped feeling possible. The room became quiet again. Then Victoria looked at me. And now? My pulse tightened immediately. Because now was a much more complicated question. Then I smiled slightly. Now I think life likes surprising people. Victoria laughed softly. That's a very diplomatic answer. It's the best you're getting. She shook her head, still smiling. Yet something changed in her expression. Relief. Tiny. Almost invisible. But there, then neither of us spoke again for several minutes. We didn't need to. The moment had already said enough. The next morning was Sunday, final evaluation day. According to Emma's schedule, this was apparently the most important stage of the entire mom search process. I woke up to find Emma already sitting at the kitchen table reviewing paperwork. Actual paperwork. Good morning. She didn't look up. We're very busy today. My pulse immediately tightened. That's concerning. It should be. Then she flipped a page. Victoria currently has a strong score. I stared at my daughter. You gave her a score? Emma nodded seriously. 93. Somewhere, a corporate executive probably felt a disturbance in the universe. Around 9 o'clock, Victoria came downstairs. The moment Emma saw her, she smiled. Good. Victoria blinked. Good. You're awake. Another pause. The final evaluation begins in 45 minutes. Victoria immediately looked terrified. Should I study? Emma thought carefully. Probably.